Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She was a mother of three, a woman of faith. She never missed her Sunday church live stream, and she was a grandmother. She is the mother of one of the most recognizable faces in American television. But that night, in the quiet of her home in the Catalina foothills, no one was watching. No one except the person who came for her. And tonight, we follow the trail they left behind. Because almost every criminal believes they planned the perfect crime. But almost every crime leaves something behind. A trace, a signal, a mistake. And sometimes, it only takes one. January 31st began the way most days do for Nancy Guthrie. It was an ordinary Saturday. She had dinner that evening with her family and they both shared a meal and conversation, the ordinary rhythms of a life well lived. She was dropped off at her home sometime around 9:45 p.m. Nothing seemed wrong. Nothing seemed unusual. The house sat quiet and undisturbed in its neighborhood in Tucson's Catalina foothills. And when the night grew late, Nancy went inside. Her phone was there. Her medications were there. Everything she needed in its place. And by all appearances, the night was over. But somewhere not far away, someone was preparing. Someone who already knew the address, who had studied the house, who had thought about the cameras, who had a plan for the cameras. The neighborhood went to sleep. Nancy's street went quiet. And the hours between midnight and morning stretched on in darkness. At 1:47 in the morning, the doorbell camera at the front of Nancy Guthrie's home went offline. Not because of a power failure, not because of a glitch. Someone made it go dark. And whoever that is must have done it on purpose. On February 10th, 9 days after Nancy vanished, the FBI released something to the public. They were 4 still images and a short video clip. They were not recovered from the camera's local storage because it had been disabled. But it was recovered from what the FBI called residual data located in back-end systems. Cloud servers, backup logs, and digital ghosts. And what those images showed stopped investigators cold. A figure dressed in black, wearing a mask over the face, wearing gloves over the hands, carrying a black Ozark Trail hiker backpack, 25 liters, the kind sold at Walmart. In one clip, the figure approaches the front door and raises a gloved hand directly to the camera. He was not trying to knock, neither was he trying to ring the bell. But rather, he was trying to block it, to cover it. In another clip, the same figure faces the camera, flashlight clenched between their teeth, and uses vegetation to obscure the lens. This was not a crime of opportunity. This was not someone acting on impulse. Everything about this moment, the mask, the gloves, the backpack, the deliberate approach, speaks to preparation, speaks to someone who had thought this through. And then the cameras went dark, and Nancy Guthrie was gone. It wasn't until Sunday morning that the alarm was raised. Nancy was expected at a friend's home to watch a live-streamed church service. She went every week. But Sunday came, and Nancy didn't go unlike her. Her friends called her children in. Her children called for help. And when the Pima County Sheriff's Department arrived at her home, they found her phone. They found her medications. They found everything she needed to survive. Everything except Nancy herself. Deputies noted her limited mobility. There was no indication, none, that she had left voluntarily. This was not a woman who simply wandered off. This was a woman who had been taken. When the FBI began canvassing Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood weeks after her disappearance, they weren't just asking about what people had seen. They were asking about something else entirely. They were asking about the internet. Multiple neighbors in the Catalina foothills told investigators the same thing. Their Ring cameras had glitched on the night Nancy vanished. One couple living adjacent to Nancy's home said the camera closest to her house showed only 2 words when they checked the footage: not available. Their other cameras, farther away, worked perfectly. Only the one closest to Nancy's home had gone silent. And FBI agents going door to door found the same story repeated again and again. Something had disrupted the internet in that neighborhood. In the early hours of February 1st, the question was, what was it? Look closely at the FBI's released footage of the suspect. In one image, barely visible, there is something protruding from the figure's pocket, an antenna-like device. Investigators began asking a very specific question. Was this a Wi-Fi jammer? A signal jammer is a device that broadcasts interference on radio frequencies, disrupting Wi-Fi, cell signals, and wireless cameras in a targeted area. They are illegal for civilian use in the United States, but they can be purchased. And when it is in the hands of someone who came to this quiet neighborhood with a plan, they are devastating. If a jammer was used, it explains everything. Why the cameras went down, why the neighbors lost their footage, why the street went blind. And it tells investigators something critical. This person didn't just want to avoid being seen. They came prepared to make the neighborhood unable to see them. The Pima County Sheriff declined to confirm publicly whether a jammer was used, but the FBI's questions spoke loudly enough. And if investigators can trace the purchase of such a device, trace the signal it emitted, the model, the seller, the buyer, the net begins to close. The person who came for Nancy Guthrie was careful, but careful is not the same as perfect. And almost every crime, no matter how planned, leaves something behind. The backpack. The black Ozark Trail hiker backpack visible in the FBI footage became one of the most significant leads in the investigation. Sheriff Chris Nanos called it publicly one of the most promising leads in the case. Investigators believe the backpack, like the clothing and face mask worn by the suspect, may have been purchased at Walmart, either in a store or online. Walmart cooperated with investigators, providing records of all Ozark Trail hiker purchases. From the surrounding area going back several months, every receipt will tell something, every transaction and every delivery address. The net was cast. The DNA. When deputies arrived at Nancy Guthrie's home, they found something else. Bloodstains, confirmed to be Nancy's. And alongside that, DNA that did not belong to Nancy. DNA that did not match any family member. DNA that did not match anyone in close regular contact with her. Foreign DNA collected from the property, sent for analysis. Investigators acknowledged one concern. The sample quality was uncertain. There was worry it might not yield a full usable profile. But forensic science is not static. What can't be matched today may be matched tomorrow. Because every new felony arrest in America adds a profile to CODIS, the national DNA database. And one day, without warning, the machine rings. The vehicle. A neighbor's Ring camera about 2.5 miles from Nancy's home captured a vehicle speeding down the road at 2:36 in the morning, less than an hour after her doorbell camera went dark. Sheriff Nanos confirmed investigators were looking into it, alongside hundreds of thousands of other vehicles on Tucson's roads that night. One of those vehicles may have been the one. A gray Range Rover found in the parking lot of a nearby Culver's restaurant was later seized and towed by investigators. The search widened. Authorities briefed U.S. Border Patrol and Mexican law enforcement. Because Tucson sits less than an hour from the border, and someone trying to disappear might not stop at the state line. The ransom notes. Within days of Nancy's disappearance, something arrived that shook the case. Multiple ransom notes, sent to media outlets and family, demanding payment in cryptocurrency. The notes set deadlines. The deadlines passed. No proof of life followed. The Guthrie family pleaded publicly and directly. Nancy's son Cameron looked into a camera and said, "Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We need you to reach out. We need a way to communicate." The family offered $1 million for information leading to Nancy's recovery. 1,500 tips flooded in. More than 700 were deemed credible. Investigators are still working through them. History has a long memory when it comes to crime, and modern forensic science has a way of closing the distance between the past and the present. Example of such cases is that of Joseph James D'Angelo, who terrorized California for over a decade. He was a ghost so careful in his operations and methodical. For 40 years, he believed he had gotten away with it. And then a genealogy database caught him. Not because he made a dramatic mistake, because a distant relative uploaded their DNA to a consumer genetics site. And a chain of family connections, traced backward through the years, led investigators to his door. He was arrested in 2018. He was 72 years old. The evidence had simply been waiting. Genetic genealogist C.C. Moore, one of the foremost experts in investigative DNA analysis, has spoken publicly about the Guthrie case. Her message to whoever took Nancy was direct. If I was the kidnapper, I would be extremely concerned right now. Using investigative genetic genealogy, they will be identified. It's just a matter of time. The same lab, Guthrie, that helped identify Brian Koberger in the University of Idaho murders is now being discussed in connection with this case. If viable DNA was collected from Nancy's property, and if that DNA can be processed through investigative genetic genealogy, the identity of the person who walked up to that door at 1:47 in the morning may already be in a database somewhere, waiting to be found. The FBI has amassed thousands of hours of surveillance footage from across Tucson. Traffic cameras, business cameras, Ring doorbells, license plate readers that log every vehicle passing through their field of view, cell towers that record every phone that connected to their network that night. In the modern world, movement leaves a mark, and investigators have been painstaking in their reconstruction of that night. Every vehicle, every signal, every timestamp. One of those timestamps may hold the answer. In the weeks since Nancy disappeared, her family has never gone silent. Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognized anchors in American television, who stepped away from the Today Show. She had been scheduled to co-host coverage of the 2026 Winter Olympics opening ceremonies. She didn't go. She went to Tucson. On the 1-month anniversary of her mother's disappearance, Savannah stood outside the house with her sister Annie and her brother-in-law Tommaso, surrounded by the yellow flowers left by strangers, by neighbors, by a nation watching. She wrote simply, "We feel the love and prayers," and kept looking. The family acknowledged the unbearable uncertainty in a video posted in late February. Savannah told the world that her mother may already be gone, but they remained hopeful. Because until there is an answer, there is still hope. And they donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, so that other families facing that same terrible silence would not face it alone. That is who Nancy Guthrie raised. That is who she is, reflected in her children. Somewhere tonight, the person who walked up to Nancy Guthrie's door is still out there. They may believe the darkness swallowed the evidence. They may believe the jammer erased the trail. They may believe that enough time has passed. But investigators are still working. Lab results are still pending. Tips are still being followed. And the list of things that cannot be undone keeps growing. A backpack purchased somewhere, with a record, a device used, with a signal, DNA left, waiting for a match, a vehicle caught on camera, with a plate, a phone carried that night, that connected to something. You don't need to make a big mistake to be found. You just need to make one. And in this case, the evidence suggests that one mistake has already been made, maybe more than one. Sheriff Chris Nano said it plainly. I think the investigators are definitely closer. And when cases like this break open, they often break all at once. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She loved her church. She loved her family. She showed up every Sunday. She deserves to be found. And whoever took her left a trail. If you have information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, contact the FBI Tucson Field Office or the Pima County Sheriff's Department. A $1 million reward has been offered by the Guthrie family. The FBI has also offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to her recovery. Because someone somewhere knows what happened.